Drangleic and its surrounding kingdoms are in ruins, the leaders nowhere to be found. Yet their followers remain at their posts, loyally following commands they were given ages ago, despite losing their minds in the process. However, this is not the case for all of the abandoned hollows scattered throughout these lands. Some have grown tired of fulfilling orders from masters who will never return, or who have gone mad themselves. Slowly, they start to rebel. Whether this is a conscious choice or another symptom of their hollowed minds, I cannot say, but surely, these isolated cases of rebellion across multiple factions have their own reasons for coming about. The rules are simple. We collect gear from various minions of the area bosses, and use it to kill them in the boss fight. This includes weapons, armor, spells, consumables, and anything else an enemy might use. For example, when fighting the Belfry Gargoyles, we would dress up as one of the Bellkeepers that can be found in the Belfry Luna. If a boss doesn't have any minions or followers, we'll dress up as one of the other enemies in the area, even if they aren't necessarily connected with the boss. Most enemies drop at least some of their gear, but if they don't, we'll try to mimic it the best we can with what we have available. Dark Souls 2 has a lot of options when it comes to enemy outfits, so even if the closest followers of a boss don't drop any of their gear, we'll likely have a secondary enemy that drops its full set as an alternative. Just as this game has twice as many bosses as the first one, it also has twice as many enemies, and as such will require a ton of farming even when going through the levels naturally. For this reason, I am allowing myself to use Cheat Engine to spawn in rare drops, but only after doing a fair amount of farming. Fair defined as how much farming I feel like doing in one session. Basically, I do want to go through the areas and kill enemies along the way to try for drops, but I don't want to have to join the company of champions and do a 3-hour farm for each individual weapon and armor piece. This also applies to any online-only items and other Covenant rewards. Unlike the first time, there will be no penalty for this because I'm not spawning in anything that is unobtainable like last time, but rather following my usual rule of only allowing duping or item spawning when a legitimate farming spot has been reached to save time. If I didn't use Cheat Engine, the run would probably take 2 months to complete. With that quick disclaimer out of the way, that should be everything I need to mention before we start. This time we're changing it up and starting with one of the magic classes. For this run, I've chosen a Sorcerer. There's no huge reason for doing so. I guess it does start out with a rare cloak we might need later, but other than that, having the utility of spells should help us out in the early parts of the game. Early game is going to look a little different than a typical DS2 run, because we're not going to be able to fight the last giant until around the end of the game when we finally get access to the gear of his minions. That's not going to be relevant for quite a while, so for now we'll just focus on the task at hand, which is getting gear for the Dragonrider fight. For a boss in Heide's Tower of Flame, I think the Heide Knights are the most fitting enemy to challenge the Dragonrider. But like a lot of enemies in this game, they are very stingy when it comes to dropping their equipment, but hopefully we'll still be able to get some of it through natural progression. After a long session of farming the enemies in the Tower of Flame, I decided it was time to switch to something else. I remembered that while I can't do much in the Forest of Fallen Giants without the Soldier Key, I can still attempt to kill the Pursuer during the one-time encounter on the roof. I also ran a couple more errands in the forest, like getting all the keys to unlock everything in Majula. That way we can have a few more Estus flasks and a soul vessel as well. Those ended up coming in handy many times throughout this playthrough. Before doing anything else, I went back to the Tower of Flame to kill the Guardian Dragon there and get the Watch Dragon Parma, which we can keep on our back for a boost to item discovery. I tested it out on some of the enemies here, and it did seem to be making enough of a difference to matter. With just one round of farming, I had already gotten an old knight to drop their leggings. But that's not what we're doing right now, remember? Right now, we need to assume the proper identity to face the Pursuer. I decided to use my souls to level up my intelligence this time. Even if I won't be a mage for most of my enemy impersonations, we can always respec later. After making sure my staff was also upgraded, I went back to Melintia to buy her fragrant branch so we can open the Shaded Woods. In the meantime, I'll stay here a little while longer to finish collecting items and opening shortcuts. While the Hollow Soldiers here do drop their armor, we can get a clean version of the set from Molin after spending some souls in his shop. We can simply go to the end of the level and pick up a halberd from the edge of this statue to imitate the halberd-wielding variant. We still need more souls to buy the entire Royal Soldier set, so let's set out for the Shaded Woods to collect some soul items. As we go down this path, we can get a few more upgrade materials for our Estus flasks, which should help us to not screw up the one-time encounter with the Pursuer. Last but not least, we need 14 dexterity to wield our halberd, and from here, we should be all set. The Pursuers are more of minions themselves, so they don't really have their own minions, but regardless of who they serve, it certainly seems like the enemies of every area where you find a Pursuer are forced to join their cause of hunting the bearer of the curse, even the ones that are undead themselves. For this reason, I'll be challenging the Pursuer as a simple Royal Soldier, perhaps one that was meant to fight alongside it on this very roof. While the others have hollowed and forgotten their purpose, one soldier seems to have regained his humanity and fighting spirit. Through this act of rebellion, he hopes, the downtrodden onlookers will regain some sense of self, and perhaps remember the days when they united against a common enemy. This time, that enemy can be the Pursuer. However, this turned out to all be in vain. The mindless hollows were unaffected by this, and instead, all turned on the Royal Soldier who seemingly regained his sanity. Alas, the life of a rebel is a lonely one. Anyways, let's get some more endurance and vitality before we return to the Tower of Flame. It only took hunting every last enemy in the level to extinction, but I did it. I got the whole set and a sword, minus the gauntlets. This was a demonstration run to show how much time it can take to farm these legit. From here on out, I will not wait until I kill every enemy in an area to spawn in drops. We don't even need to upgrade our sword for this. The lightning damage alone carries this sword in early areas. It works so well against the Dragonrider that even using the one-handed moveset without meeting the requirements still yields yellow damage. All of that farming for a fight that barely lasted over a minute. With this over with, we unlock a couple of new areas, one of which we'll need to pay Lycia to unlock. No killing her this time, I actually need her as a merchant. Of course, we also need to spend the rest of our souls before we explore the next area. Once again, those will go towards endurance and vitality. Now then, let's head to No Man's Wharf as we start preparing our next enemy outfit. Up next, we're going to become a Varangian Sailor, an enemy that is not only exclusive to this area, but also connected to the area boss, the Flexile Sentry, through the lore. It is said that these pirates were forced into labor by a former king after being captured at sea, where we can see them continuing their mindless labor long after the fall of the Old Kingdom. One particular place they seem to be forced to work is on the Flexile Sentry's ship that hauls the undead off to the Lost Bastille, and of course this same ship is where inmates are thrown overboard when the Bastille can no longer hold any prisoners. Originally, I was going to be a suspicious shadow since those can be encountered in the fight at Bonfire Intensity 2 and above, but because the Varangian soldiers are so abundant, it would be more practical to go that route since I've already established that I don't mind doing at least some of the farming legitimately. They also have decent drop rates compared to other enemies like the shadows, so it gives us extra incentive to go through the level properly without trying to rush. And why would we want to rush anyways? We need to give our little friend here some time to catch up. He's super helpful for us since we can't use our weapon in one hand. He can scare off the Darkstalkers for us with his torch. I didn't expect him to follow us to the very end of the level, but he never faltered and will even jump down ledges to get to us. His pathfinding skills are immaculate. Before we fight the area boss, we need to raise our stats a bit to power stance our scimitars so we can mimic the combos performed by the Varangians. The scimitar requires 16 dexterity to wield normally, and to power stance it, we need 1.5 times of its strength and dexterity requirements. This should be a fun duel between dual wielders. Well, maybe it isn't really a duel since there are technically 3 of us, but you know what I meant. I'm fighting relentlessly like a real Varangian, spending my whole stamina bar on these flashy combos and getting punished for it every time. Do I stop after getting punished the first 3 times? No. At least if we heal in between getting hit, nothing they do should ever be fatal. Besides, sometimes I prefer a more flashy fight over a practical one. We'll be sure to get our Pyromancy Flame before we head out to the Bastille, but of course we'll also get a few levels back at Majula. Oh yeah, I forgot about another downside to not facing the last giant when intended. We don't get the tower apart bonfire, so we can't get our dull ember. That means McDuff's not going to be able to do anything for quite a while, and by the time we get his ember, who knows, maybe we won't even need him at all. Let's not worry about that though, we have more work to do to prepare for the first boss of the area, the Ruined Sentinels. Though the Royal Swordsmen technically serve under Vendrick, that doesn't mean they aren't obliged to follow orders from others who are a higher rank than them, especially the Ruined Sentinels who are in charge of guarding the prison. And for all the Royal Swordsmen who obey orders, there's always going to be one who refuses. Unfortunately for us, there are a lot of loyal Royal Swordsmen in this area who will have no problem taking us on in a 1v5. However, this is also fortunate, because it means we should have no problem collecting their gear. Though they do have some junk in their drop table. As I clear them out, I end up with a ton of souls to spend on levels back in Majula, increasing ADP first. I also upgrade the Royal Greatsword a couple of times before spending whatever I have left on more levels to increase our survivability. We will now proceed to infiltrate the boss room using the special secret entrance only the guards know about. Once we're in, we'll have a pleasant break from the Gank Squads for only a moment as we take out the first solo Sentinel. That was easy enough. With the top platform secured, we can wait here for the second one so we can do as much damage as we can before the third one joins in. Or we can improvise a new plan. From the looks of it, we're pretty well off. Damage is good, we have plenty of life gems from farming all those swordsmen. We just need to be patient enough to focus on whichever is the aggressor out of the two. The most important part of this fight will always be situational awareness though. We have to make sure that both of them are in our line of sight, because when one finishes an attack, the other will be starting theirs. As long as we save some stamina after our attacks, we should be able to roll out of the way as needed. This seemed like it would go wrong quickly, but it was actually a very easy fight with the help of our Royal Greatsword. It may not have helped us in our giant slaying years, but ironically, works very well against our superiors. Continuing into the next part of the area, we have another pursuer encounter for some easy souls, and when we get it out of the way, we can get some of the loot down here for later. Naturally, we're going to activate the Lockstone contraption so we can access the Belfry Luna and eventually the Belfry Gargoyle fight. First, we need to speak with the Bellkeeper here and join his covenant. The ring does absolutely nothing offline, but we're gonna wear it anyway because we need to commit to our role. The only way to get the Bellkeeper armor is through this covenant, but to get it, we need to defeat 100 trespassers. This technically can be done offline by killing the Mad Warrior enemy that has a small chance to spawn in Belfry Soul, but I can't get to Iron Keep right now for reasons you'll understand later, and as much as I think it is totally worth killing 100 hosts to invade someone looking like this, I'm gonna spawn it in. The rest of their gear, the bow and the shield, will drop from the enemies. And the drop rate must not be too bad because I got both of those things on the first try. The Bellkeepers themselves seem to be using a simple hand axe buffed with fire, so we've already got that taken care of. As you know, I prefer to demonstrate how I'd farm an item even if I spawn it in afterwards, so we're going to get some charcoal pine resin from the pit. With the Silver Cat ring, we can easily make it down to this final area before the entrance to the gutter, where we'll find 3 rupturing hollows with a fire core. This particular type drops charcoal pine resin. I ended up running out of homeward bones before I got one, and I didn't feel like running back and forth every time, so I took a break from that to get some upgrade materials from the Huntsman's Copse. Once we're here, we can get some large Titanite shards as a guaranteed drop from the giant basilisk in the cave. There's also a crystal lizard at the end of the area that drops us 3 types of Titanite. After clearing out the whole area and upgrading my hand axe to +6, I returned to the pit for another farming session, and luckily, got a piece of charcoal pine resin to drop for the demonstration. Now we have everything we need for our Bellkeeper cosplay, except for the firebombs because I forgot about that part. The Bellkeeper shield is not the best shield out there, but for what it is, it actually has decent stability, but it only absorbs about 60% of physical damage when it's barely upgraded like this. You really need to pay attention if you want to block a lot, because you will end up taking a lot of damage with this. You can see that I was trying to rush a bit in the beginning and got punished hard for that. It's much better to pick them off slowly, one at a time. Our buffed hand axe can kill a single gargoyle very quickly, but once we do that, more will start spawning, so we'll have to choose our moments to attack wisely. We do have the advantage of range with the Bellkeeper bow. It's also not upgraded much, but with the limited fire arrows I had, I was able to kill another gargoyle. Once I ran out of arrows, I switched back to my hand axe to finish off the last one. I actually had a lot of fun on this fight this time around, which is good, because I plan to do it a second time to get the reward. After killing the invader and picking up all the loot downstairs, I go back to the Lost Bastille to get a bonfire ascetic to take back with me to the upper ramparts, do some leveling, then return to the aforementioned bonfire to increase its intensity. Oh, right. We have to defeat the Lost Sinner first. Well, alright, I wasn't gonna fight her right away, but I guess I have no choice. For this, we're gonna have to put something together using a ragtag assortment of enemy clothes. The Undead Jailers do not drop any of their clothes, which is sad because they, along with the casters and the Shrine of Amana, have some of the best unattainable armor in the game. The best we can do is imitate the bandaged look with something like the shadow leggings dropped by these enemies here in No Man's Wharf. Surprisingly, there aren't many long capes like theirs in this game, but after looking at everything available to us, I think the Lion Clan Warrior Cape is our best bet. I ended up killing every one of these enemies without getting the cape in particular, even the petrified one that drops the Fang Key, and that was after I had raised my item discovery with the Prisoner's Tatters and Merchant's Hat. So we'll just have to spawn this in too. The cape looks good, but I don't think the bra really matches what we're going for. I think it's time for us to pay our first visit to the all-powerful gender-swapping coffin. Stop hogging it. You have to wait your turn like everyone else. If this is what it has to come to, so be it. There we go. I think that looks a little better. Now we just have to find some gauntlets and we'll be all set. We have a few options for this, but I chose the tattered cloth manchettes to add to the bandaged look. While I was farming the jailers for their great machete, I did sneak up to one to get a better look, and noticed that they do wear gauntlets and trousers, but the rest of their body is covered in bandages. I have no way to achieve that, so I think making a compromise with the leggings and manchettes is still the best way to go. Similarly, I don't have any options to wrap my head in bandages like they do, so I'm wearing the default hood to cover my face instead, which I think achieves a similar effect. I imagine they have a hood they can put up when they want to, and that's what this particular jailer decided to do. After we get our main weapon, we'll go to Rosabeth to upgrade our pyromancy flame as much as we can before we head out to fight the Lost Sinner. Our only pyromancy is a humble fireball that's more of a gimmick than anything since she is resistant to fire damage. We'll be relying on our Reaper to do damage. For how hard it is to get, it's not that special of a weapon, but then again, the description says it's for evoking fear, so maybe the jailers didn't intend to use it in real combat. Like the others in its class, we need to hit the sweet spot to deal the most damage to our target. The Lost Sinner is not very cooperative and tends to jump out of the way as soon as I'm done lining up my attack. I thought this was supposed to have decent range, but when I thought I had the spacing down for the sweet spot, I was always slightly off the mark. Maybe it's the dim room messing with my depth perception. To me, this didn't really feel like a rebellion that arose from the discontent of the jailer, but rather, a jailer that has taken pity on the lord who asked him to imprison her forever. Perhaps he felt that she had already been punished enough, and knew he had to take it upon himself to put her out of her misery. After we get a few more levels, we'll go back to the Belfry Luna and respawn the gargoyles now that this area's lord has been defeated. This time I kept my shield on my back so I could do more damage. I thought maybe I could get away with rushing them down this time, but that went about as well as you'd expect. I had to take my own advice and focus on a single gargoyle at a time. It can get hectic at bonfire intensity too, but the same principles apply as before. I also got a little extra damage with my dark pine resin. I had to swap to it once I had used up all the charcoal resin. We are rewarded for our patience with the +2 version of the Covetous Gold Serpent Ring, which grants us the highest possible boost to our item discovery. We can use that while we progress through the game to get more items naturally, so we can still be rewarded by exploring even if some things will have to be spawned in. That fight ate up all my Dark Pine resin, and I need it for the next enemy impersonation, so we're gonna have to use some of these souls to get more faith. We only need 8 faith for him to talk to us. Then we can buy an infinite supply off of him. This is going to be the easiest outfit in the world. We're going to be one of the hollows with the cursed swords, so all we need is a loincloth and a broken sword, and it turns out I have both of those things already. Obviously, we need to look the part as well, so we'll stand in front of a cursed pot until we're fully hollowed. I bought a few extra swords from Malintia just in case it breaks mid-fight, but despite it being broken, we can still upgrade it. We'll be challenging the Rotten as one of the hollows that makes up its body. We've somehow fallen off the main body and gained a will of our own. Like the other hollows roaming around the gutter, our sword is imbued with the power of darkness. It's not particularly effective against the Rotten, but it does give a slight boost to our overall damage. I was surprised at how much damage the broken sword was doing in the first place. I also noticed that attacking with it hardly uses any stamina, which means its DPS is really good for being a broken sword. As a weapon, it's definitely mediocre at best, but the low stamina cost could probably fill a niche for certain builds. Unsurprisingly, the Rotten is still free souls, even with a broken straight sword, which we can use to level up our strength as we prepare to be the next enemy. Even though most of the Lion Clan warriors were cleared out, there were still a few petrified ones left that I could potentially farm their gear from. The only problem was I accidentally unpetrified the wrong one, the one that guards the Warlock mask, and doesn't give you your branch back. So I ran out of branches and had to do the jump skip to get the one in the forest. After getting my branch, I unpetrified the correct lion by these ruins, which guards a chest containing the Lion Mage set, as well as another branch. I had better luck with this single lion than I had with any of the others in the level. He dropped almost everything except for his great axe, and of course the Lion Warrior helm, which is only dropped by the non-respawning Golden Warrior. After spawning in the helm and an appropriately upgraded Lion Great Axe, I went to respec my stats out of magic and into strength. For the final touch, let's also become hollow again so our appearance matches that of the other Lion Clan warriors. I wouldn't really call the Lion Clan warriors minions of Najka, but I don't think they inhabit the same forest by accident. Like Najka, they aren't fond of outsiders and would be considered abominations of nature due to their strange appearance and mysterious origin. They also could be the product of an experiment, much like Najka and her husband. This forest seems to be fairly isolated, save for the odd human bandit that comes along, so I think they deliberately settled here to keep out of sight. If anything, they are fine coexisting with her and her husband, because both parties despise and are despised by humans. With that being said, the Lion Clan is still mostly composed of warriors, and seeing the state Najka is in now, a warrior would not back down from a chance to fight her for control of the forest. Our equipment consists of a standard shield and great axe. There isn't anything special about either of them. They do their job, but aren't worth the time it takes to grind for them. +3 might be considered below the recommended weapon level for Najka, but I thought that since this is a great axe, I would go lower so our damage wasn't too ridiculous. The damage output was way lower than what I expected, and certainly doesn't compare to the damage the Lion Warriors get on their version. The shield has okay stability for early game, but it doesn't do well when combined with a stamina-eating weapon like a great axe. I got my guard broken several times because I forgot to save my stamina for blocking. This was a very messy fight overall. Despite that, I managed to do it without dying, so the Lion Clan equipment wasn't totally inadequate. Before we go to the next area we just unlocked, there are a few optional bosses we can still fight before we get too overpowered. The first one on the list is the Royal Rat Vanguard in the Grave of Saints, but I'm sure you could tell that much already. At first, I didn't think I would be able to do the rats justice, but I managed to find equipment that sorta works. All I did was put on every piece of the shadow set except the chest piece, and it somehow gets the message across. I can't access any claw weapons right now, so I'm just using my bare fist to attack, but the shadow gauntlets will give them a clawed appearance. Likewise, the shadow leggings have claws for our feet, and the shadow mask gives the illusion of a long snout, especially in a darker room where you can't see the other details. The fight itself shouldn't be too bad. This isn't the first time I've had to fight these little shits with fists only, so I've learned a few tricks for dealing with them. Damage shouldn't be a problem. Getting your attacks to actually land might be difficult due to how short they are. To hit them consistently, I prefer to stick to either the jumping attack or the two-handed strong attack. We don't have much poise though, so it's easy for them to interrupt it and apply petrification buildup, so we'll still need to be patient so we don't get insta-killed. Just for fun, I farmed this last old knight in the basement to see if I would get his weapon, and I did. He's the only one in the entire area that dropped a weapon. I did get another guy to drop a shield earlier, but that's useless now because the Ultra Greatsword variant doesn't even use a shield. That's okay, I'm not much of a shield person myself. I'd much rather two-hand it and get the damage boost. Like all of the old knight equipment, the Ultra Greatsword has very low durability and is unlikely to survive even a single boss fight without breaking. However, at just +3, the damage is starting to pick up quite a bit, and as expected, the old Dragon Slayer was completely demolished by this sword, and it certainly helped that we actually have poise this time. Let's get some levels before we officially head to Brightstone Cove. It's obvious that we would have to fight the Prowling Magus as a member of his congregation, but which member should we choose? Well, the best choice would be the Hollow Priests, since they are the most distinct out of all the enemies in the room, and all of their equipment can be used by the player. The only problem is we can't get the Priest set unless we beat the boss and buy it from Cromwell, so we'll have to settle for the Priestess set instead. There are only minor differences between the two, and since we can find it on a corpse in the same church, we can assume this priestess was once a member of the congregation before she got eaten by the spiders in the attic. To be a priestess, we will be needing faith, but I ran out of soul vessels, so I had to go to the first DLC to get one from the Sanctum. I also got the Sanctum Priestess tiara, but we won't be needing that type of priestess gear yet. Anyways, let's put everything into faith and attunement so we can use lightning spear and great heal like the priest enemies do. I decided to challenge myself here, the word challenge used loosely, by not using Estus flasks and instead healing with great heal exclusively. As you can tell, nothing in this fight was much of a threat when we have lightning spear, and the splash damage was very useful for clearing out multiple enemies at a time. We must wear the mask of the fallen magus to absorb their souls. We are the magus now. Well, that position of authority was short-lived. Back to the mines we go. A peasant could never hope to afford a high-quality weapon. Instead, we must use our shoddy mining tools to fend off attackers. Unlike the peasant set, which we can get as random drops from the peasant enemies, the pickaxe they wield can only be acquired through a very strange ritual. It's kind of an open secret among DS2 players, but it's still got to be the most obscure weapon in the series. It's not something you'd stumble across on your first playthrough. You have to go out of your way to lead a pig all the way down to the end of the level, just before you climb up the ladder to drop into Freya's nest. On the Scholar version of the game, it's fairly easy to get because you can use a torch to keep the spiders away, but I'd recommend not making the same mistake as me and clearing out these peasants before you aggro the pig. Otherwise, you might accidentally kill your pig and have to start over. I know the peasants wield torches too, but they only ever wield one weapon at a time, so I've put my torch away for the fight for extra accuracy and an extra challenge. Similarly to the Hollow, our pickaxe will be buffed with dark pine resin to mimic the curse effect seen on the peasants' weapons. The vertical moveset is perfect for hitting shorter enemies like the spiders, and it should be good against Freya as well, since we don't have to worry about it colliding with her fangs. The only problem I had with this weapon was its short range. Sometimes I would be right in front of her and still miss. But the counter damage boost we got from the old Leo ring more than made up for this. And with all these spiders out of our way, we can finally infiltrate the hiding spot of our real target, the Duke of Seldora himself. In other news, we've achieved 1 million soul memory and can now open the Shrine of Winter without killing the Old Iron King, who is the only old one we can't get to yet. Our next goal is getting the King's Ring to access Aldia's Keep. So, let's begin gathering equipment for the next enemy impersonation. It often happens that the boss of an area is a minion itself, and so it doesn't have any minions that officially serve under it. In the case of the Dragonriders, we know that they are the highest ranking knights of King Vendrick, so all we have to do is move down the ranks a little to the Ruined Sentinels, which are high ranking, but not quite as high ranking as the Dragonriders. Like the Dragonriders, they occasionally lose their boss status and get stuck as filler enemies in other areas. In Dranglake Castle, they've been locked away with nothing to guard save for some cheap trinkets and a forgotten secret passage. But who would make it past the stone soldiers and figure out how to open the contraptions anyway? No one's infiltrated the castle for ages, leaving the Ruined Sentinels to collect dust behind the doors with no purpose. Now that they've finally gotten a chance to escape, they seize this opportunity to take over the castle under the guise of watching over it. Wielding a polearm and a shield that are both unobtainable, we'll have to improvise something else for their weapons. They do drop their armor, but it is extremely rare, and after despawning all of them from farming, I only ever got a single drop, so the rest will be spawned in. The Llewellyn shield I got from the stone soldiers looks close enough to the one used by the sentinels, and for our weapon, we can simply buy the Lucerne from Veliger for a close match. After using the souls from farming to meet the stat requirements, we're gonna go straight to the Dragonriders and see how it goes, without even upgrading the Lucerne beforehand. Thankfully, these guys are weak enough for it to not really matter, and besides, I plan to use a shield poking playstyle for them anyway, so damage isn't a huge concern. Also, this is the only way to benefit from the old Leo ring since it's the only move to do thrust damage on this game's version of the weapon. Alternatively, we could abandon the shield poking and instead go for a spinning attack, much like a real Ruined Sentinel would do. This is a much more efficient choice since it does heavier damage by default and has a wider hitbox, allowing us to hit both of them in one attack. It's also much more consistent than the shield poke attack. It was a bit of a drawn-out fight, but nothing that couldn't be handled by a basic, unupgraded weapon. As we proceed to the deepest part of the castle, we'll need to put together an outfit to face the Looking Glass Knight. Fittingly, we'll be challenging him as one of the warriors that he summons from his mirror when you are playing offline. It would have been fun if there were some stat somewhere with the average player's loadout, but we'll just keep it simple and stick to the halberd-wielding elite knight. The halberd is easy enough to farm from various Syan soldiers in the castle that wield it, so the only part we're missing is Pate's shield. However, I progressed Creighton's quest already, which means that Pate has also moved to Earthen Peak, so we can't kill him right now. We could always substitute it with another great shield, but then I thought to myself for a moment and wondered, when was the last time this guy successfully blocked something? Aren't the ones summoned by the mirror also the failures who were sacrificed because they couldn't beat the knight? We have nothing to prove, because we're not here to become warriors like the others. We are only here to get him out of our way. Nevertheless, we will demonstrate our lack of fear by entering the fight without a shield. By the time the Looking Glass Knight summoned the first warrior from his mirror, most of his health had been depleted. But instead of rushing him down, I thought it would be better to kill the man in the mirror first so we can truly become his replacement. As the fight went on, I improved my impression a bit and started wielding my halberd in one hand like he does. We already established that this guy doesn't know what blocking is, so we were able to counter-hit him to death and return our focus to the boss, who dies just as quickly. The Archdrake enemies were an easy choice for the Demon of Song. I mean, what else is there with unique equipment in this area? The Demon of Song never had any minions, but it did have priestesses to appease it and keep it from massacring humanity, but now there's no one left to appease it, so this is more like the enemies doing pest control than it is an enemy rebellion. The Archdrake equipment is some of the easiest enemy equipment to farm in my opinion. I got a drop on almost every kill, and of course, a high enemy population is always helpful. The Slumbering Dragon Shield is actually not just for show this time. Even though I'm not really using it much for blocking, it does have a passive stamina regen effect, of which I hope I have enough vitality to prevent the weight of the shield itself from offsetting. This fight wasn't very eventful. I guess it never is. The most that happened here was me being stupid and falling for its follow-ups. The Demon of Song is more of a stepping stone to the next boss, the one guarding something very important to us. It's weird to come here without having encountered Aldia yet. I feel so lonely. We learn from the description of the items they drop that the stone soldiers found in Drangleic Castle served under Sir Velstadt himself, and only turned to stone because they never stopped waiting for his return. Velstadt left the castle along with his king on an unknown mission to the depths of the Undead Crypt, where the two remain today. It is there where we will meet him as one of his abandoned soldiers. We've grown tired of waiting for him, and instead are turning to anger induced from the futility of it all. While they drop a stone spear, they don't drop any of the armor they wear, so we'll try to mimic it with other sets. We're imitating the ones found after the first bonfire, so the ones that don't have the horse heads. This variant appears to be wearing a helmet with the visor up. The standard knight helm is perfect for that. As for the other pieces, I'm mixing together different sets to achieve the slender look of their armor, while also trying to preserve the eroded stone-like appearance. I've come up with something that I think does them justice. The Royal Swordsman chest piece may be a bit too shiny to pass as stone, but it fits the style of the one they're wearing, and besides, once we're in the Dark Crypt, it'll help hide the inaccuracies. Our combat skills have gotten rusty from all the time we've spent as stone, and it's clear that we've become impatient after all the years we spent waiting for our leader. We can't crumble into nothing yet. We must pull ourselves together for just a moment, just long enough to defeat the Royal Aegis. Having a spear will help us close the distance and easily punish him with less risk than a shorter weapon. His openings are very brief, and we won't have to waste time trying to get close enough since we can stab him from afar. We're not going to have a super aggressive playstyle with this. Instead, we'll gradually wear him down and focus on saving stamina. It's important to always have enough for a dodge, since he recovers from his attacks so quickly and can catch you off guard with his various combo extensions. Sometimes we can sidestep him instead of rolling if we need to recover more stamina, but this is riskier since there's a chance you'll get clipped and have to eat a hammer that takes away half of your health. I ran out of Estus towards the end, so I had to get a little more aggressive so I could close out the fight. Thankfully, it didn't backfire this time. Once our duty is done, the King's Ring awaits us, which means we can finally progress down the path to the last old one still standing. At long last, we've made it to Aldia's Keep. This is what's been keeping us from the Skeleton Lords all this time. I just needed the Dark Mask so I could be a skeleton. To think, one of the simplest outfits in the run could require the most convoluted route ever, but I think it was all worth it. Like all FromSoft skeletons, we just need a sword and a shield and we're ready to go. In this game, skeletons wield a falchion and a foot soldier shield, the latter of which we can find in a cave back at the Forest of Fallen Giants. Oh, and one more thing. Skeletons don't have boobs, so let me just get rid of these real quick. I tried to play like a real skeleton and parry when I could, but it's not super useful in this fight with no iframes to protect you from the mob. So I only used it when I had a few or a single enemy left. It's very strange to encounter Cloanne so late and already have all these items unlocked. I didn't even know you could unlock this stuff before she moved to Majula, honestly. About what I said earlier, I'm actually gonna need those back. They're kinda important for dressing up as the next enemy, believe it or not. The desert sorceresses drop all their clothes and even a ring, but the flame fan they use is sadly unobtainable. The player only ever gets to use it as a pyromancy in DS3. The best we can do is a pyromancy flame with combustion attuned, since that is one of the spells they can cast with their fan. I also went to buy Lingering Flame from Strayed, since that one seems to be the spell they love to spam the most. While we could spawn the Skeleton Lords again for the +2 version, I think the +1 clear bluestone ring is okay. I really only need a little extra casting speed. It was pretty fun trying to fight my way through the forest with pure pyromancy. If you hit the trees to distract the bandits, you can hit them all with Lingering Flame while they crowd around it. I do have to be careful when I'm this scantily clad. This set has about as much poise as you'd expect it to. which is 0. I've collected enough fire seeds by now to get the Pyromancy flame up to +8, which is way higher than necessary for the Covetous demon. This is 100% an inside job and not a rebellion. You can't convince me that this desert sorceress wasn't hired by Mytha herself to get rid of this thing, and that it isn't the highlight of her career. Nobody likes this guy, and to make things even worse, he's the first thing visitors to the Earthen Peak encounter. First impressions are really important for a queen, and all he does is roll around and make her look bad. He's an embarrassment to the whole kingdom, he's gotta go. As I suspected, a few casts of combustion would get the job done faster than lingering flame, but sometimes it's more fun to play with your food. The next minion of Queen Mytha has much more of a reason to rebel. Supposedly, the Manikins once had the coolest masks in all of the land, which made the queen so jealous that she gave them an ultimatum. Either they take their masks off and wear the new, less cool one she made for them, or she rips off their heads and they will remain headless forever. And who could blame them for the option they ultimately chose? Unfortunately, we can't put the old one back on, even in an act of rebellion. Those were destroyed along with their heads, but we do have a spare of the other design. I actually didn't have a lot of trouble getting their weapons to drop. I think I ended up with at least one copy of everything in their drop table except for the dagger. I decided to use the shield and saber from Mytha, upgrading both to at least +5 for good measure. This doesn't really surprise me because I love curved swords in the Souls games, but I really enjoy the moveset of this weapon. Since it's such a rare drop, I don't get a chance to use it very often. It has a lovely design and a graceful moveset that's befitting of the agile Manikins. Mytha's not very resistant to bleeding, so we can occasionally bleed her out for some extra damage. It's not a whole lot on its own, but works well on a weapon that relies on combos like this one. I love this build so much that I don't feel ready to part with it yet. I guess we can wear the Manikin outfit a little longer while we go through the Iron Keep. I don't think item discovery gear will be necessary for collecting Alonne Knight gear. You don't even have to farm for it. You'll get it sooner or later when you're just trying to get to the end of the level. The only thing I actually had any trouble getting to drop was the Black Steel Katana, but I still managed to get it before any of the enemies despawned. As we go through this area, we'll be sure to go out of our way to kill the Ironclad Soldiers as well. Their time to shine will come eventually. You know what? Let's max out the Katana, why not? The old Iron King is piss easy to the point that it's actually difficult to die to him in the first place. Our damage is going to be really good, but since all we have is a melee weapon, the fight will be artificially dragged out. Even then, it was a fairly quick fight, and we can finally say that we've defeated all of the old ones, and of course, get our first encounter with Aldia. You don't have to worry if you take a weird route through the game and get them out of order. As you can see, if you warp back to the Undead Crypt, he will be there, and you can progress his questline normally. Before we move on to the final section of the base game, we'll clear out the remaining optional bosses. This time we have some actual claws to equip for our rat cosplay. One which we got from the Manikins, and one that we can buy from Gilligan. After putting several levels into dexterity, we'll be able to power stance them. We don't want to over-upgrade for this since this boss is at a much lower level than us, so we'll stop at +4 for both of our claws. The dog rat outfit is almost identical to the regular rat outfit. The only change I've made is putting on the lion mage robe so it looks like we have some mangy fur. It's kinda hard to kill the smaller ones without getting attacked, but we've collected plenty of divine blessings up to this point for situations like this. The Authority shows no mercy towards any of its minions and has no qualms about stepping all over them to defend its territory, so it's no surprise that one of them has turned against it. This is a fight where I prefer to play without the lock-on in most cases. I hit it more consistently with the short weapons like claws when I'm not locked on. And with that, we're ready to challenge the next optional boss. The Ironclad Soldiers and Smelter Demons have much in common, Both are golems created by the Old Iron King to serve as minions. With the king out of the picture, the Ironclad soldiers must focus on a new target. And the Smelter Demon, which has claimed a large part of the Iron Keep for itself, will be the next authority figure to go. The exact Great Hammer these soldiers use isn't obtainable, but there are plenty of options if you're looking for a substitute. I chose the Old Knight Hammer, but the Demon's Great Hammer or even the Drake Keeper's Hammer are also good matches. The Old Knight Hammer will break fast, so let's see if we can beat the Smelter Demon before it breaks. That could be a fun mini-challenge. It's upgraded to +8, so it hits hard, but we need to be careful to not hit the Smelter Demon during his buff when he takes less damage from it. This ended up being a perfect fight in the sense that the Old Knight Hammer was just one hit away from breaking when we killed the Smelter Demon. For the last optional boss on our list, we have the Executioner's Chariot, which will be challenging as one of the Necromancers that revives the skeletons in the arena. Since I chose the Sorcerer as my starting class, I have the robe already. The Mask and Catalyst can only be farmed during the boss fight, since the Hollow Mages will no longer spawn when the boss is defeated. The fastest way to do this is to focus on the first Necromancer, and quit out to respawn at the Fog Gate if she doesn't drop anything. With less gear to collect than usual, this doesn't take too long, and we can start buying spells to attune with our Lizard Staff. While we can't quite reanimate the skeletons to fight for us like the Necromancers can, the Dead Again Hex allows us to use their corpses as weapons, which is more or less the same thing. We have 3 skeletons to work with when using Dead Again. I'm not super experienced with using this, so the timing will take some getting used to. When we do land it though, it is so satisfying to see its health coming off by the thousands. After a couple of hits, it'll get too tired to do another lap, and we can simply knock it off the ledge with a tiny ball of magic. The Prowling Magus, also known as an Aldia Warlock, will be an easy costume to make with the gear we already have. I do wish that the Ledia robe had the longer sleeves depicted on its icon, but we'll just say the Magus is wearing his summer attire. I'm using the Lion Mage skirt so it looks tattered like the robe he wears, but if you would rather have something that hides your character's legs, the Bone King skirt would also be a good choice. It's not an exact match, but the Bone Staff still looks pretty close to the one he uses. We'll mostly be casting Dark Orb, so we'll buy several copies of that. But we also are going to use Scraps of Life to emulate the dark AoE the Magus performs. We need to use a chime for that one. Any chime will do, but I'm going to use Kytha's chime since it has an affinity to darkness. As I was going through Aldia's Keep, I realized that I didn't have enough faith to use my chime, so I had to go to Lycia to buy the Ring of Prayer since that would be faster than leveling. Once we've defeated all of the Forlorn Phantoms, we'll get the key to the locked room where we can find a single Warlock with a Cursed Bone Shield. The only part of the outfit we're missing. He wasn't kind enough to drop it for me, so I just spawned this one in. It's only cosmetic anyway. I know very well that the simplest Dark Orb will beat out any of the other fancy hexes, but we'll still give Scraps of Life a shot just for some variety. But Dark Orb is so much easier to use, so that variety will be short-lived. With the Ashen Mist Heart, we can finally take care of some unfinished business. As an elite giant, we must wield 2 great clubs to display our strength. Giant warriors have their own clubs. We can find one of these clubs inside the memory of Vamar. We'll have to make a compromise for the other club, though. We have to defeat the Giant Lord at least once to be able to use a Bonfire Ascetic to get a second Giant Warrior club. But to do that, we would need the Soldier Key from the last giant to access him in the first place. Of course, we could jump across the ledge, just like we did to get the branch, but I think it's more fun to work with what we have. Before we start looking for our second club, let's at least finish up the rest of our outfit. The giants seem to be wearing bracelets or shackles, so I'll finish Kraton's quest to get the engraved gauntlets. These look a lot heavier than, say, the Lion Mage cuffs, which makes sense considering that they're worn by giants. I made a mistake with this one since I put on the Bone King robe. I was looking at all the Giants' designs and got the club wielders mixed up with the Pyromancers, the latter being the version that wears a hood. Everything else is as close as it can get though. We've got the Lion Mage skirt for the waistcloth and can use the Smelter Demon helm for that iconic gaping butthole face. All that's left is to get the Great Club from a chest at the end of the gutter. Although we don't have nearly enough strength to wield the Giant Warrior Club in one hand, since this is only the first boss and we're facing him at the end of the game, I decided it would be fair for us to have a handicap. The Great Club, however, we can use one-handed. And though neither weapon is upgraded at all, the heavy attack is about 4 times stronger than the Warrior Club. There's the logical explanation of not meeting the strength requirement, but could it be that the kinship between giants runs so deep that even their weapons take on aspects of the creators? Its original owner refuses to point a club at their former leader, and while I can take the weapon for myself, it wasn't made to obey the will of humans. Despite this, I make sure that the former giant lord falls by the club of his own warriors, in what will only be his first taste of betrayal. Or was it his second? This time I went out into the field to study my target, the Pyromancer giant. Honestly, what we have is spot on except for the skirt. The Pyromancers barely have anything on at all aside from the robe. I experimented with a few things and found that the default waistcloth looked the closest to what they wear. They seem to be using very basic pyromancy as well, so we'll equip a few types of fireball and call it a day. I think we've all fought the Giant Lord with spells from this platform many times, so I don't really need to explain this one. Even with the simplest pyromancy, I didn't have to replenish my spell uses a single time. I'm not fighting Vendrick yet, but I'll at least prepare for the fight and get some Dragonrider gear. We can use the 2 boss souls we got to make the halberd and the shield, and after using a bonfire ascetic at the beginning of the Iron Keep, Magarold will sell us the Dragonrider set. Thank God we don't have to farm all of the Dragon Knight gear. I want to do a special gimmick like I did with the Black Knight impersonation in the first video, and this could potentially take several days if we didn't have Cheat Engine. I couldn't even get them to drop me something for a quick demonstration. I believe I only got a single weapon, and that was when I wasn't recording. They also have a chance to drop dragon scales along with those dinosaur-looking things in Shulva, so we'll be spawning those in as well. After killing the invader and looting the petrified egg, we'll give it to Magarold so we can start ranking up in the Dragon Remnants Covenant. Look, I know I'm a cheater, but I'm an honorable cheater, okay? I'm not gonna skip the middleman and spawn in the Covenant rewards. We're giving him those scales one by one. Each Dragonstone will automatically equip the Black Dragon set as long as your character doesn't have any armor on already. Finally, once you've given him all 30 scales, you'll get a Black Dragon Greatsword to complete the set. Just like with the Gwyn fight, we'll be using all of the weapons of his minions to defeat him, swapping weapons after every quarter of his health that we deplete, starting as a dual axe wielder. We're gonna play it safe and stick to his front side so we don't get squashed to death. It's probably a better spot anyway because we're in range to hit his head or his front toes. Both are relatively safe options compared to the hind legs. The toes are typically easier to hit because he only bobs his head down for a second, and most weapons have trouble reaching his head even at its lowest point. After the axe wielder is the sword wielder. We'll also need to put on our shield at this point. I'm glad I remembered the existence of the item box before I did this. I didn't have too much luck hitting his head with the sword either, but once it was time to bring out the war pick, I had adjusted to his patterns again and was more consistently hitting the head. There's not any bonus damage for hitting it or anything like that, but he does have a few more attacks if you stay near his head to change it up from the usual fire-breathing spam, or at least, in theory. It seems to me he just spams that no matter what I do. After a while, I went back to focusing on his legs, closing out the fight with the Black Dragon Greatsword. Fighting him with all these different weapons certainly helped to keep it interesting, and it eliminates the threat of our weapons breaking too. Welp, there's only one way to remove this armor. Like I was saying before fighting the Ancient Dragon, we're going to challenge Vendrick as one of his Dragonriders. We already have the Halberd maxed out, so let's do the same with the Great Shield, since the Dragonriders use it frequently. I know Velstadt is considered the king's closest confidant, but he was already betrayed by Raim, so maybe it would be too cruel to make his other knight betray him. But betraying him as one of the founding warriors of Drangleic? Nah, that's fine. The Dragonrider Great Shield isn't even the best one when it comes to stability, but apparently it's all you need to completely avoid taking damage from him. I'm pretty sure the only thing we could possibly take damage from is the 3-hit combo, since we only have enough stamina to block 2 hits. But he doesn't do that very often, so we went through the whole fight without taking any damage. The Halberd also did a lot better against him than I would have expected, so we were blessed with a painless Vendrick experience. Next up is his wife, but before we can get to her, we need to take out the Throne Duo. For this one, we'll defeat them as one of the many Syan Soldiers defending the castle, specifically the sword variant. Oddly, the greatsword that they use looks identical to the Black Knight greatsword, but of course this one doesn't look exactly like the original either. I guess the same could be said about the Tower Shield as well, but that one most likely got its name swapped with the Great Shield of Glory by mistake. The flow of time is distorted in these lands. I want to make sure I've collected all of the Primal Knight gear as well. This is what I plan to swap to for Nashandra. But let's go back to the Syan Soldier for a second. I was actually getting so carried away with this that I managed to die in the absence of a threat. Neither of them are particularly strong against fire, so the split damage on the Black Knight greatsword came in handy. The path to the throne is clear. Or so we thought. Just as the Syan Soldier thought he was going to usurp the throne, a Primal Knight swooped in from behind and attacked when he let his guard down. It had thought everything through by letting the soldier do all the work, but then something much darker crept up from behind. Queen Nashandra is a very interesting case when it comes to these games. It's rare for any royalty figure to not have any enemies that are exclusively loyal to them. All of the enemies that could be considered a minion of Nashandra are loyal to Vendrick and only follow her by extension. Even the Primal Knights are a result of the experimentation of him and his brother. To me, this is a perfect representation of her endless desire that can never be sated, for she represents the curse of want, the aspect of humanity she inherited from Manus. She will never have minions of her own because she is cursed to take power that is not her own, never to obtain what it is she wants most of all. But, unlike her husband, she did kill me a couple of times, so interpret that how you will. It was hard to overcome my sluggishness with all the curse wells around. Even after destroying them, you can still get cursed by her scythe. And she breaks my guard way easier than her husband too. Eventually, I stopped worrying about the curse and accepted that I would be doing this fight with less health. Even if I'm heavy rolling in this armor, it was a better alternative to getting my guard broken because at least I can still do something after a roll. The Primal Knight believed the way to the throne to be cleared, foolishly falling for its own trap twice, but upon hearing the voice of Lord Aldia, it immediately abandoned the throne in fear, leaving it to the next minion up to the challenge. I don't know if a forest spirit is interested in claiming the throne. Perhaps the Dark Chasm is a more suitable habitat for these mysterious creatures. We're gonna combine the Chime and Staff variant into a single build, so we need lots of attunement to include all of the spells they can use. We'll need Faith as well to be able to use more advanced miracles like Great Lightning Spear, and though we have lots of souls after beating Nashandra, it still isn't nearly enough to raise our stats to where they need to be. So, we'll use another soul vessel to respec into an Int Faith hybrid. This also takes care of the attunement problem. And we also have the +1 version of the Southern Ritual Band that we got from Brightstone Cove much earlier. I imagine the lightning spells will be the most useful, so I went to get the other 2 copies of Great Lightning Spear before attuning the rest of the spells the forest spirits use. The plan was to use all of the spells equally for a nice fair fight, But once I saw the damage I could do with a few great lightning spears, I couldn't convince myself to put it down. However, I did add another extra challenge because I figured something like this would happen. Since the forest spirits are healers, I thought it would be more fun to use Great Heal instead of Estus and Life Gems. The idea was that it would discourage me from being too greedy with lightning spears. Aside from causing one death, it didn't really make much of a difference at all. I'm sorry, I couldn't control myself. Okay, now we have done everything in the base game that isn't Aldia, so I say we're ready to start fighting some DLC bosses. Starting in Shulva, we'll challenge Alonne as one of her Sanctum Knights, but first, we need to do some preparation. The helm is free, but we'll have to get the rest of our set on our own by killing the knights who wear it. In addition to this, we need both variants of their crossbow, the regular Sanctum one and the repeating one. They do swap to melee when you fight them up close, but I think it would be more interesting to do a crossbow-only fight for once. I'll be copying their exact setup too. They wield the Sanctum repeating crossbow in the right hand, and the Sanctum crossbow in the left. I can't believe I haven't done this yet, but we have the soldier key now, so we can get the Dull Ember and open Macduff's shop. I only thought about it because I need him to purchase bolts for my crossbows. I considered infusing them with dark, but since I don't plan on exclusively using the special attacks, it would do more harm than good since it doesn't add dark damage, but only lowers physical damage. Besides, dark damage probably won't be that useful against a Child of Dark. I only packed 100 bolts for this fight, which was pretty much setting myself up for failure. I don't know why I ever would have even considered that I would get lucky enough for her to not bring in the bellboy. With a crossbow, it's really difficult to ignore him, so I would have to use a good amount of bolts to kill him anyways. I actually did kill him, but by then, even I could tell that there was no way I could kill her with the amount of bolts I had left. There's always the jump attack, but I really don't want it to have to come to that. Luckily, you can use the special attack without bolts, but that depletes its durability faster. And if you had to guess, how much repair powder would you say I had in my inventory? And just as this happened, I heard the chime of a bell from behind. At this point, my spirit had been completely broken and I couldn't even think clearly enough to figure out a new strategy. First of all, we need to make sure we buy more than enough bolts before we even think about trying again, and I underestimated how important our sidearm would be here, so I hadn't even fully upgraded the Sanctum crossbow yet. I also should have known that I would be dying a couple more times, so even 200 bolts won't be enough. We need to get as many as we can buy. Like I said, the regular crossbow is very useful in this fight, particularly for dealing with Velstadt since it's faster than the repeating version and takes less time to reload. The repeating crossbow is only good for damaging Alonne herself, assuming that Velstadt is dead and we can openly attack her. He's the only summon worth killing on a crossbow build. The others can't do much to us, so if we waste all our time picking them off, we're just giving her more time to summon Velstadt again, and we want to avoid him at all costs. The only downside to having all these little piggies running around is that we have to cycle through them when locking on, which is kind of annoying, but they were so silly I couldn't help but smile the whole time, so I have to thank them for giving me the morale boost I needed to finish this fight. Up next, we have the boss that is the most infamous for just being there, the Gank Squad. Nobody knows anything about them or the disgusting place they came from, but more importantly, they don't have any minions. While we could always try to be a Sanctum Soldier, I have a better idea that is way more fitting for them. If we assume the nameless afflicted grave robber to be the leader of the trio, then surely the other two members could be considered her minions. So, the solution would be to defeat them as their own doppelgangers. First, we go in as a double of their leader to confuse them and sow the seeds of distrust. She wears the Alva set, but also dual wields the rarest katana in the game that is only dropped from Mad Warrior Invaders, the Berserker Blade. So I think it's fair if we just spawn those in right now. As for the next member of the group, the Old Explorer, he wears Lucatiel's mask, which we'll have to get through evil means, and a mixture of the black leather and leather set, both of which are really easy to obtain. For his main weapon, the Dragon Slayer Greatbow, we need to kill the Old Iron King a second time for the Old King's soul. He does swap to an S-Stock if you get close enough, but I associate him so much with the bow that I'll use it exclusively for his portion of the fight. The Ancient Soldier is the easiest one to cosplay. He himself is just cosplaying as Havel, so that's all we'll have to do as well. For the final touch, we'll visit the coffin again, since the male version of the leather set is distinct from the female version. That way, we'll look exactly like Sarah. With the exception of the Grave Robber, our target in the fight will be the one we intend to steal the appearance of next. For example, right now we're targeting Sarah, so when we kill him, we'll swap to his gear before targeting Varg. He may have been an easy kill, but a Havel warrior is going to take a lot more effort to take down. At least we can use the cheese spot as a sort of changing room to swap outfits without being disturbed. It's not the best shooting spot, so we won't stay here for long. Instead, we'll do this the right way and fight them fairly. Our great bow does good damage to him, but it takes an entire stamina bar to use, which makes it hard to pull off a shot safely. But I had an idea to equip the third dragon ring to see if the stamina boost would be enough to fix that, and thankfully it was, so that solves one problem. Our other problem is a common one when it comes to Varg. If you leave him alone too long, he'll start healing himself, which can be hard to avoid with the Grave Robber still alive. It's not that it isn't easy to tell when he's about to do it. You'll notice when he becomes unusually passive. It's just that if she gets in the way when we shoot him, we can't risk taking a second shot to interrupt him because of how dangerous her backstabs are. We just have to be patient and let it happen. If we take our time and gradually cancel out the health he gets back, he'll die eventually. I almost had him for a second, but accidentally rolled myself off the platform into the water. That tiny mistake definitely prolonged the fight by a couple minutes. Once I got him and the Grave Robber separated, I could finally move on to the final phase of the fight, which was also the easiest. I had systematically killed and transformed into her companions right before her eyes. This quick death was merciful in comparison. We'll need to switch back to caster stats for the final cosplay of this DLC. The Sanctum Priestesses were given the duty to lull the dragon into an everlasting slumber, and even today they continue their song in an effort to subdue this dragon once more. But the city is in ruins, and the priestesses themselves horribly disfigured by the poison. All that remains is their elaborate tiara. Although they seem to have the remnants of some other dress, they don't drop any other articles of clothing, and from the looks of it, they seem to have been wearing a corset that has melded with their body, which all represent with a Desert Sorceress top. The rest of the outfit can be substituted with the Lion Warrior cuffs and the Lion Mage skirt. The casting tools we use don't matter since the priestesses themselves don't have any, so we'll use whichever ones we have that are the best for hexing. All of the spells they use happen to be available to the player. These are Dark Orb, Affinity, and Scraps of Life. This time I'll really try to use all of my spells equally, and to make sure I do, I'm not going to use any items to replenish my casts. The priestess has finally accepted that her efforts to pacify the dragon are too little, too late. Instead, she opts for a method that she is sure will subdue the dragon once and for all, using the techniques taught to her by the Child of Dark. Affinity can be useful for when he flies up in the air, because the orbs will continue to chase him and hit him in cases where my other spells can't. Scraps of Life can also be useful, but as always, it takes a long time to cast it, so it can be hard to time it. He also can jump out of the AoE if he feels like it, so the amount of damage against him varies. But if you do manage to get him to stay in the circle, a big enemy like him has a good chance to get hit by the pillars. Now, we move on to the next lost kingdom of the land, the Broom Tower. The Fume Sorcerer isn't a rare enemy. There's a room full of them that's perfect for farming their gear, but even with all of my item discovery stuff on, I was finding it really hard to get them to drop anything. I don't think I need to show my respecking anymore, but I'll at least show that I ran out of soul vessels and had to get 2 more from behind this illusory wall. Alright, well, we cleared them all out, and what you see on my character is all I was able to get legitimately. Somehow I managed to get the blue dagger to drop before I could get the boots. That and the umbral dagger is all we're missing. The umbral dagger is their main weapon, while the blue dagger is kept in their offhand. It's kind of like the Crisp Blade from Demon Souls, because it boosts spells when equipped, while at the same time lowering our magic defense, and I believe our other elemental defenses as well. The only other thing we need is Heavenly Thunder to emulate their lightning AoE, and a standard chime to cast it. Heavenly Thunder is a risky spell to use against the Fume Knight. I'm pretty sure the only real opening we have is at the start when he's crawling out of the ashes. Chances are most of the lightning bolts will miss, so it's not a risk that's worth taking. Initially, I was power stancing my daggers, but I was having trouble reaching him with this moveset and figured it would be better to just two-hand the umbral dagger. While we can't take advantage of its high backstab power against the Fume Knight, we can at least pretend to backstab him if we use the strong attack. It also gets a damage boost from the old Leo ring, so maybe if we get a counter hit, we can actually see some yellow damage. Probably not though, we'd be lucky to see damage higher than 2 digits. Daggers aren't meant for big damage anyway, but we can still do a decent amount if we get in a couple slashes at a time. Also, we should probably put on that flame quartz ring. Despite what I said about this spell, I still wanted to use it at least sometimes, so I tried to find some openings. I would say a good rule of thumb is if his sword starts making noise, you have a chance to cast it. Of course, you still need to be quick. If you're too late, he can follow up instantly with something else. And sometimes his follow-up has a follow-up. You know what? We'll play it safe and use it as a finisher. Apparently I can't even rely on this spell to do that. I'm starting to get flashbacks from the one-shot challenge. Fittingly, we'll be challenging Sir Alonne as one of the knight captains named in his honor after his departure from the Iron King's service. Like all the Alonne Knights, they were taught by Sir Alonne himself, a foreigner from an eastern land, explaining why they use katanas. The katana used by the captains is a bit different than the black steel katana they drop. For one thing, they can imbue their version with lightning. That's an important detail that we need to capture. Another thing I want to capture is their large stature in comparison to the Alonne Knights. I think using the comically long washing pole will help create that illusion. We'll take a quick detour to the Shrine of Amana to pick up Sunlight Blade so we have a permanent lightning buff. Then we'll return to Majula and use some soul items to level our faith as high as we can, using the Ring of Prayer to make up for the rest. Lastly, we'll infuse our washing pole with lightning so we benefit even more from the buff. And now, we're ready to challenge the very man who made us who we are today. However, we cannot forgive him for his treachery. Our loyalty remains with the king, and we blame him for the division created among the knights, leading one of them to assassinate the king, or what remained of him. Despite all of that, we still respect him as a leader, and agree to engage in a fight to the death, and show him how far we've come as a knight since our last encounter. First, we demonstrate that we have enough control over our lightning to constantly channel its power into our weapon, so we must keep Sunlight Blade active at all times. We only have one use at a time, so when it runs out, we'll have to use an herb and patiently wait for the next opening to apply the buff. This is yet another weapon we can use with the Old Leo ring, so I'm mostly going to be using it in one hand so we have access to the thrusting heavy attack, but we can still do a thrust as a running attack when two-handed. Alternatively, we can use it after a backstep, which might be better in certain situations. Knowing the fate of the kingdom, we likely won't go on much longer after this, so we'll have to leave it to another warrior to destroy the last vestige of the old Iron King's influence. What better warrior could there be to do it than one of the Iron Warriors? Like the Manikins, the final product is quite different from the concept art. In the concept art, we can see that this enemy wasn't always headless. Oddly enough, they still drop a Minotaur helm despite not having a head, so I guess we'll just have to wear it anyway. For our armor, as long as we have something that looks as tattered and melted as what they wear, it'll look close enough to the real thing. I chose the Imperious armor as the chest piece since it's torn like the one they have, and for the gauntlets, we'll just need something that exposes the hands. The Bone King cuffs work perfectly. and then we'll use something else with minimal coverage like the Executioner leggings, and it'll come together really nicely. The only choice we have for a weapon is the Smelter Hammer, since all variants of Iron Warrior drop the same weapon. Lastly, we're going to keep the Immolation Pyromancy applied as often as we can, so we can drip lava from our body like the actual enemy. The blue Smelter Demon will eventually buff itself with blue fire of its own, which means we're going to have two things sapping our HP at once, so life gems are very important in this fight. On the bright side, the Smelter Hammer will make quick work of pretty much anything. Even though we have to stall him out for a chance to rebuff, this will still be the shortest fight of the DLC so far. The best thing about this fight was the overlapping of fire and magic. It made for a great final battle to close out the second DLC. We'll start the final DLC as a simple retainer. These enemies are said to have been left without a purpose after the priestesses they once attended disappeared, so they need some excitement in their lives. I think attempting to slay one of the king's 7 beasts should keep them occupied. While the blizzard's still going, the retainers won't even attack you, so they'll be easy to farm for gear. The only thing I wasn't able to get without Cheat Engine was the retainer staff. On top of only dropping from the staff wielders, it has a ridiculously low drop rate. Usually this isn't a problem because you can find it as loot, but you have to kill Ava to access that in the first place. The staff itself isn't really anything special. It's a good staff for low intelligent characters since it has decent base damage for only requiring 18 intelligence to wield, but you get it so late in the game, so I feel like there are always better options. Oh well, it still looks pretty cool. Sadly, the version of the robe the retainers drop doesn't have the hood up, so we'll have to settle for the Ledia white hood, which of course is a slightly different color, and since the retainers need at least something to cover their legs, we'll wear the Hollow Soldier leggings. Overall, this was a simple fight, but unfortunately, Ava is just the first of 3 of the King's Beasts, still lurking near the city. The Rampart Golems are yet another abandoned follower of the Ivory King. Like the retainers, these creations have been left without a purpose. They once assisted the king in the containment of chaos, but with the kingdom now frozen after failing to put out the flame of chaos, there is nothing left for them to watch over. Centuries of abandonment causes them to start behaving strangely. They can no longer distinguish between creatures of chaos and their own allies. Eventually, one golem manages to wander off into the frigid outskirts. Here, it finds awful creatures that it can't imagine being anything but chaos demons themselves, but also 2 of the king's loyal beasts, Lud and Zolin. Assuming the pair to be the source of the foul creatures it saw before, eliminating them would be the most logical thing to do. I didn't even bother using the golem shield against them. It's not meant for blocking physical damage, and it lacks the stability we need to fend off 2 enemies at once. Instead, we'll try to get the most out of the extra range we get from the lance's 2-handed heavy attack. A lance has the potential to do great damage in this fight if we take advantage of its multi-hit properties and fish for counter damage. On the other hand, we need to be careful to not get greedy, not just because it could get us killed, but because it could break our weapon. It's really annoying to get my momentum interrupted because I have to use repair powder, but it's the price I have to pay to not go through the frigid outskirts again. I came very close to killing Zolin before he could start healing himself, but this time I didn't feel like waiting the whole thing out and decided to push my luck and attack through it, which turned out to be a wise decision. I've taken the time to assemble the rest of the Loyce Knights, choosing to be a Charred one myself. Both versions have farmable gear. The regular version requires you to bring Alsana a certain amount of Loyce souls, while the Charred version is dropped by the Charred Loyce Knights during the battle. The Charred Knights can also drop their shield and greatsword, and as you probably guessed, I've spawned them in to avoid hours of grinding. This time I finally have some allies to assist me in my rebellion against the boss. Though I don't know how much of a rebellion it really is if by defeating him we're ultimately carrying out his will. During the first part of the fight, we can take advantage of something unique about this set, its lifesteal effect upon defeating enemies. Strangely, this only occurs if your character is a female. There's nothing in the item description to indicate that this is intentional, so I can only assume it's an oversight. On top of this, we also get some regen from having the Charred Loyce shield equipped, which is also useful for conserving Estus while we wait for the boss to spawn in. When it's finally time to challenge the Ivory King himself, only one of my companions remains at my side. But his determination doesn't waver, and he manages to hold him off for the majority of the fight, only dying so that I may have the honor of dealing the fatal blow. The other enemies have fled from the throne, leaving one final imposter to stand before Aldia. One of his own dragon acolytes has grown tired of working at the manor, and has gotten curious about the throne and the Firelink legend. Using nothing but the tools of experimentation and enchanted urns he got from his workplace, he challenges his former boss for the chance to finally make a name for himself. But little does he know, he has fallen victim to the same trap that has fooled generations of undead before him, the very falsehood that Aldia warned about. Surely, taking the throne will elevate him to a greater purpose. For what better purpose could there be for a rebel than to be the next leader and rewrite the world as you see fit? Believing this to be what he desires, he can finally think for himself and make his own choices for the fate of this world. But who can say if the choice was ever his own? Thank you everyone who took the time to watch this video. It was a bit of a long one, but if you made it this far, I sure hope you enjoyed it. This is one of my favorite runs, and I hope to eventually do this for all of the Souls games. Well, at least the ones where the enemies actually drop their gear. As always, feel free to leave me suggestions for my next video, tips for improvement, or anything else you have to say about the video. I always read comments. That's all for now. I'll see you in the next video.